AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Our host brings you the leading minds in AI, sharing their story, their success, and their advice. Focusing on fast-tracking you to the top, AI in Action cuts through the hype to help you kickstart your data science career. To listen to the latest AI in Action podcast, head over to www.alldus.com/podcast or subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Podcasts.
You're listening to AI in Action. I'm your host, JP Valentine. Our guest today is Josh Lospinoso. Josh is the CEO of Shift5. Josh, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, JP, for having me. I'm really looking forward to the conversation.
No, it's a pleasure, man. All right, let's start with yourself. Quite an interesting background, so I'm looking forward to having you talk us through it. But can you talk us through your own professional background, where you got started, where technology came into it, and what's your journey been just before Shift5?
For sure, yeah, and I think it ties in pretty well to what we're doing at Shift5. So I spent a little over a decade in the U.S. military. So I started at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. Got a scholarship to study over in the UK. Did a PhD in statistics at Oxford, and then put the uniform back on and spent a lot of time in the U.S. Intelligence community, learning kind of information security from some of the best in the business. And then got into this really wild niche of cybersecurity where we look at things called operational technology. So my two co-founders at Shift5, Mike and James, who were also Army officers, kind of didn't get the memo about information security being an IT thing. So, cell phones, laptops, and instead they looked at some of the big machines in the military, like helicopters and land vehicles and aircraft, and said, "Hey, these things have evolved into networks of computers. They might be encased in 70 tons of armor, but they're fundamentally giant computers." And so the three of us started looking at these things from a cybersecurity perspective and said, "Hey, you've got antivirus on your phones and network gear and laptops and things. Why isn't there antivirus on weapon systems or by extension on things out in the civilian world, like trains and aircraft and maritime vessels, heavy equipment?" And so, we really got started with technology in kind of an unlikely place, which is, the U.S. Army. But because there's so much technology embedded into every aspect of life these days, there's always an opportunity to kind of, I think, if you've got the right mentality, get involved with technology. So,
yeah, absolutely. And then it obviously speaks to bringing together your previous professional experience and then like all great entrepreneurs, it's like, how can we make a business out of it? So
right.
Tell us about Shift5. What was the aha moment where you realized there's a market for this, and then give us some insight into who you are and what you do.
Really for us, I mean, I think one of the most important lessons you can learn as an entrepreneur is that you should and this is hard as a technologist, someone who's always wanting to tinker with things and learn new things, start with a problem. You should always start with a problem, and the bigger the problem, and the larger the kind of shared pain is about this problem, the more likely you are to really hit it big in a business endeavor. So, in our personal experience, kind of picking up the thread on where I came from and how I got into cybersecurity and technology and data science, was we found these huge problems in operational technology. So, OT is basically any kind of technology that helps you operate a business. So these are generally things like, control systems or IoT or, like large machines that are operated by computers. And, we found these really, really devastating problems because no one designed cybersecurity into these systems when aircraft were designed in the 70s and microcontrollers just started coming along. The engineers that built these systems said, "Hey, we need to make sure that this is like a robust system so that if it gets into weird states, it can recover gracefully." but no one ever designed it with the idea that there might be a witting like adversary sending bad commands on the bus or trying to like subvert some of these systems. And so, we did a number of audits and built demonstrations against like weapon systems in the US military's inventory. And the results were devastating. Like every system we came up against, we completely subverted. We were able to make things blow up with code or like just stop dead in their tracks or fall out of the sky. It's like terrifying stuff. And you can read about this, like the US Government Accountability Office released a report in 2018. It's all unclassified. You can just download this on the internet, describing like just how bad this problem it is. And it's really, really bad. So Mike, James, and I said, hey, we just found a really big problem. Like there are trillions of dollars of assets out there that are not secured from cyber attack. We've demonstrated, it's not theoretical. We've demonstrated that we can attack these things. Someone needs to build solutions to defend these things because people's lives depend on it. It's bad when you download a virus on a computer. You might some embarrassing documents get leaked, or someone's gonna, you're gonna lose all your photos or something like that. But like if you attack a plane, you could kill people. It can drop out of the sky. So Shift5 is a genesis of the three of us saying, hey, we need to solve this problem, not only for the military, but for the broader globe. And so that's what we do. We build a intrusion detection system. So if some of the listeners aren't familiar with kind of how that works in cybersecurity context, you think about a computer network, and you've got all this traffic that's going across the networks. And generally speaking, you collect that traffic and you try to figure out what's anomalous in that traffic. Are there malicious things going on in there, or things operating out of spec? And obviously that's embedded deeply in data science. You've got statistical and machine learning approaches to try to baseline a network and then determine if something's anomalous there. So we build a system that does intrusion detection on these OT assets, on the networks that exist on these buses. So it's, and I'll get a little bit more into kind of the tech there, but we've got people that work on the hardware. So the things that get installed onto these OT systems. We've got software engineers that do everything from write low-level C and C++ all the way to, the beautiful JavaScript web pages that we build for our users. And then there's, there are data scientists who look at this data that's coming off of like highly classified military systems and commuter trains and everything in between, and are trying to determine, hey, what does normal look like here? And then what is anomalous? When is this thing operating out of spec? When is there a cyber problem? So couldn't be more excited about what we're building.
Yeah, and thank you so much for that, Josh. It's great to hear the evolution of the business idea and taking it into production. And you and I have spoken previously about the need for services like Shift5, because while the general population can be blissfully unaware, because of life goes on as normal, there's so many risks and warfare and attacks are changing constantly, that the next major conflict will be completely different to anything we've ever seen before, and it will be an attack through cyber on countries' infrastructure, whether it's the electrical grid, transport, and that's the next wave of security threat. And it's good to hear that there's guys like you out there who are actively trying to prevent it rather than solve it after the fact. So talk us through then the various solutions and give us some insight into what it's like internally at Shift5 right now. You've talked about the various people and skill set, but what's the day-to-day like? How do you take what you're working on, various projects, obviously whatever you can discuss,
Sure,
as long as not breaching any security classifications, but give us some insight into what the day-to-day looks like.
Yeah, would love to. So, we're kind of arrayed as a typical VC-backed tech product company. So we've got an engineering department, a product department, marketing, sales. And so, depending on where you sit in that structure, your day-to-day will definitely look a bit different. But for sort of the product engineering spectrum, we run modern agile process and software development, 2-week sprints. We've got product people that curate a product roadmap. So this is basically saying, hey, as a product person, all of Shift5's customers have these requirements. They bring different kinds of additions and features that they want built into the products, whether that's this is a brand new locomotive that we've never defended before, or it's, hey, our operators would really love to be able to look at the data in this way, or we found that we want to alert on this thing a bit better or whatever. And the product folks will curate those requirements into a backlog, and then that builds its way onto a roadmap. So if you're an engineer or a data scientist, you're constantly having this this high volume stream of really interesting work that's coming directly from real world problems that operators are having. You'll work on this problem. We're a kind of very independent organization, so we expect a lot of our engineers and our data scientists to work on problems and have a bias towards action and solve these problems that haven't been solved before. But of course, we're incredibly collaborative too. So when people need advice or they want to kind of bounce ideas off of folks, we're really collaborative kind of environment. So one of the things that's been interesting, I think, for us is how COVID has affected attitudes about remote work, number one, but also just how much we embrace, how we work around being remotely disconnected, but feeling very close to each other. So, we of course we have all the modern tooling. We use, GitLab for all the business stuff. We've got Slack that we're very heavy users of. People are constantly popping in and out of Zoom calls to pair program things or to do code reviews and the like. And so, we're DC, Washington, DC, Baltimore centric is kind of where a lot of us are, but we have, hires from all over the US that are super plugged into everything that's going on at the company.
Absolutely. So founded in 2018, it's been quite the journey over a short space of time. Yeah, look, obviously not without its challenges, but you guys have been successful and it's going good. Can you give us some insight into what it's been like in the first 2 years, from early pain points to, the success and most importantly, where we're going, what the next year, 2 years are going to look like?
So yeah, it's been an absolute rocket ship. So, we founded 2018, we raised our seed round in mid 2019. And since the beginning of this year, we've booked over $8 million in business as a product company, which is pretty insane. And so we are trying to keep up with this massive volume of work that we've got. We're deployed on consumer commercial passenger rail in the US. We've got boxes that some of your riders might be riding on a train right now, where Shift5 is protecting the train from cyber attack. We're deployed on military aircrafts flying around, so maybe overhead, and we're working with the U.S. military to miniaturize our solution so that we can get on things like fighter aircraft. So there's a lot of ongoing engagements right now that are extremely exciting, and the work that our engineers are doing is being deployed in the real world, saving people's lives. And so it's really remarkable. And then where we're headed, I think what's so interesting about where we sit is because we're collecting all this data from all these OT assets. What we're actually finding is, and this is where our data scientists really shine, is that we can take this data and we can actually save our customers a lot of money. Because the operational insights you can get from the data that comes off of these systems, you wouldn't believe some of the kind of simple problems that still kind of plague a lot of these transportation and industrial industries. And so, with some smarts and subject matter expertise and a little bit of Python, you can save your customers a whole lot of money. So, where we're headed is I think we're going to continue to expand rapidly in the kind of defense space, because there's just such a problem here that the government is acutely aware of. And then we're going to continue rolling out solutions that save money and keep people safe. On the commercial side in both rail and aerospace.
It's important for you to highlight the commercial application use, because I think when people hear cybersecurity, and particularly military, it's almost like there's a line drawn between, you've got defense security and then you've got everything else. But unfortunately, with the evolution of these cyber attacks, it's all mixing into one. And commercial airlines, commercial rail, energy networks are just as big a target as military strategic. Looking at the people you've brought in, look, obviously you and the founders all come from a military background, but you've talked about how there's different skill sets and different personalities have come in. Can you give us some insight? What do you look for? What type of people have you brought on, and looking ahead to the future, the various opportunities that there are going to be? And people listening to this might not be aware you don't have to have been in the military to be working on such cool products. Right. So I want you to tell them.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks. So yeah, first off, just kind of in reverse order, I mean, just to emphasize that the things we work on in the military, all of this technology comes from the commercial space. The military didn't invent any of this stuff. And so the technology that they're using is civilian, which is kind of surprising sometimes to people that don't know, a lot about the DoD. And so, most of our employees don't have security clearance, for example. And that's okay. It's going to stay that way. We have a core product. We'll adapt that to some of the military applications, and the folks that are doing the integrations will have to have some security clearance sometimes. And the other thing to emphasize is that this is a defensive company, right? Like, we're doing things that are saving lives. And so, you should feel good about the fact that you're saving, service members' lives and protecting them from some really malicious stuff. So that, I think, was really, really important thing to emphasize. And then, as far as the kinds of things that we look for when we're looking for new teammates, we take really seriously company values, and I think some of those we've already touched on. So things like being inquisitive and having a bias towards action. So if you're the kind of person who thinks up an idea and says, "Boy, I got this new data stream. I wonder what I can do with this," or I really wish I could, figure out a way to, parse natural language processing on this Twitter feed, and then figure out how I can, wire that into a light bulb that tells me if people are happy or sad. However your brain works, if you're constantly thinking about new projects and ways of solving problems and curious about new technology, this is probably a really good place for you. We pride ourselves in having, we have a lot of smart people that work here with a lot of really good opinions about how to build stuff. But the way that we work together is in a cool, calm, collaborative, and fundamentally courteous way, right? So there's always going to be disagreements, but we screen for emotional intelligence in our interviews, and we take that really seriously, because our culture will continue to evolve, and we'll have different kinds of people with backgrounds and experience and diversity, and which we absolutely not only embrace, but it's like a requirement for us in our hiring. But we're going to make sure that as new folks come on, we maintain this really amazing, calm, collaborative environment that we have. And then finally, integrity is really important. So not only do I think just having integrity is it make it easier to run a business, because people are forthcoming with problems and challenges that they're facing, so that we can be constructive and solve them. But it's also a requirement for our customers. So when you think about the kinds of systems we work on where people's lives are at stake, our customers trust us with their business, because if there's a problem, if we introduce a problem onto one of these platforms, like an aircraft or something, we could cause a company ending reputation hit if we do something bad. And so having the utmost integrity is absolutely critical for our customers to trust us with their most important platforms.
I want to continue to look ahead because I want to help people sort of visualize this space as a whole. Myself and my company, we do a lot of work in cybersecurity, but broadly speaking, when we're helping professionals in the data space assess future career opportunities, we look at organizations, and what we look for is, market cap. Is the product solving a problem? What's the growth potential? What is the mission that you can get behind? And Shift5 are operating in a space where there's absolutely huge market cap, which is only going to continue as people start to wake up and realize just how exposed we all are. The mission is clear. You're defending organizations, whether it's defense or commercial. And then it's about just educating on the space in the industry. So, look, you and I have spoken previously. I'm fascinated with this stuff. For anyone listening, I would recommend 2 documentaries, 0 Days, or the more recent one, The Perfect Weapon. But what insight can you give people who are curious but are not quite clear as to how big a deal this is, and if they subsequently found themselves working at a Shift5, the type of impact that they can have?
Yeah, no, it's great. So, just a little bit of a comment on just how big this space is. So when I was telling you about operational technology, these things like, manufacturing assembly lines, trains, aircraft, maritime vessels, heavy equipment. I'll just put this into perspective for you. Globally, every year, there's about $4 trillion in IT that gets purchased globally, right? It's a pretty big number. Double that for OT every year. So over $8 trillion in OT assets get purchased every single year. And so in some sense, this is, double the size of the IT space when it comes to securing these things from cyber attack, figuring out how we take all the data that's coming off of these, millions and millions of devices, and make a more efficient, safer, better world out of them. So it's an absolutely massive space. There's a lot of activity, and we are like right on the crest of the wave here, with starting to modernize these things. Every one of the OEMs that makes OT is starting to dip their toes into building smarts into their technology. And so if you decide to join Shift5 or some company like Shift5 that's operating in the OT space, you are going to be a thought leader and in this absolutely massive market where gaining expertise into operational technology will serve you for a whole career. And as kind of data science is a confluence of a couple of things. There's programming, there's sort of understanding of statistics or machine learning, and then there's subject matter expertise. And that subject matter expertise to me is the real differentiator. And so if you become a leader in a space like OT, you can write your ticket to basically any company that you want to work for. And the consequences couldn't be greater. I mean, you're talking about people's lives.
Absolutely. Well, final one for you. It's been an incredibly exciting 2 years. Tell us what the next year looks like. We've got a lot of exciting plans. So give us some insight into what Shift5 is going to look like 1 year from now.
Yeah, I would love to. So, we're taking off like a rocket ship. So we were less than 10 folks back in January. We're going to be 40 by the end of this year. I think we'll probably double that by the end of next year. We're already on military platforms and commercial rail. We're going to continue extending into those spaces next year. I think we're going to also extend into commercial aerospace. We're partnered with a couple of really exciting OEMs. Ariane Hypersonic is one. So these guys are making the next generation of hypersonic jets. It's absolutely fascinating technology. Boeing-backed company. They've got, and so we're going to be the cybersecurity provider for them. We're also working with a number of other manufacturers. And so I think you're going to continue to see Shift5 partnering with folks because we're getting recognized as the leaders in this space of OT cybersecurity. And we're going to continue getting on more and more platforms. So, we're on a couple of types of locomotives now. We're going to be on probably 10 times that many by the end of next year. And then, on the military side, we're looking to get onto multiple types of aircraft, land vehicles, as well as, fighter aircraft. So, if being around any of these systems seems exciting to you, and let's face it, who as a kid didn't think fighter jets were cool? This could be a really great fit.
Excellent. Josh, thanks for coming on and talking to us about Shift5. Incredibly interesting, super exciting. Congratulations on the recent success. And very much looking forward to seeing what you guys can do in the future.
Thanks so much, JP. It was a pleasure being on the podcast.
AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Alldus offer an exec search program. Alldus can help you discover how data science and AI can transform your company. With our unrivaled network of C-suite executives and senior AI professionals, we offer retained search services across the US and Europe. Get the Alldus advantage. Become a member of the Alldus community and enjoy some of the following: AI meetups. Once a month, our community gathers to listen to some of the leading experts in the world of data science and AI. Our speakers come from all over the world, including Dublin, Boston, and Frankfurt. We also have our AI mentors. Our experts will provide mentoring to Alldus members. And don't forget our AI in Action podcast. Each week we have guests from all over the world talking us through their education, career, and more. Become an Alldus member and get the Alldus advantage. For more information and to sign up for our newsletter, log on to www.alldus.com. That's www.alldus.com. Alldus International, empowering through AI.